Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is property management companies. If you are considering getting into long-term rentals, hiring a property management company can be a crucial aspect of your success. A property management company can help investors save time, reduce stress, and increase profitability by handling tasks such as tenant screening, rent collection, maintenance and repairs, and legal compliance. Additionally, a good property management company can help investors find and retain high-quality tenants, maximize rental income, and maintain the overall value of their properties. So, before you buy that long-term rental, consider working with a reputable property management company to help you achieve your investment goals. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us total badass Ashley Tison. Ashley is an attorney, professional speaker, and the founder of OZ Pros, a full-service opportunity zone advisory firm. Ashley has worked in real estate, mergers and acquisitions, business growth, and management. He brings his range of experience in all of these areas to help educate and guide investors to navigate opportunity zones. I am excited to learn more about how I can save money through opportunity zones. So welcome to the show, Ashley Tison. I do hope it's pronounced Tyson.
Yes, it is.
I didn't even
it's
ask
just like
you.
The chicken.
I was like,
it's like the chicken or like Mike, right?
Exactly. I have all both my ears. I was so excited to get this started. So I normally am like, let me say your last name. But anyway, perfect. I'm glad I got it right. So we are talking about opportunity zones today. And first, before we begin though, because you're also in North Carolina, which is why clearly we're going to get along really well. But I want to hear, how did you get involved with real estate and opportunity zones?
It's kind of a long, sordid history of badassery, if you will, right? So I went to UNC Charlotte. I actually played basketball at UNC Charlotte.
Really?
And got recruited to play down here. Did a short stint in Germany with a professional team. Came back to go to law school at Chapel Hill, and came back and worked for a big law firm. Fell in love with Charlotte from my days playing ball here. And so came back to work for a big firm. After the big firm had sufficiently sucked my soul, I started an impact investing company called Soterian. And I still have that impact investing company today. And it did real estate deals, and I also wholesaled houses, and we did disaster mitigation work and disaster response work through that company.
Wow.
And so like during that time, I had the fortunate play to be general counsel for a tenant in common syndicator, where we syndicated 1031 investors. I like to say that we would buy shopping centers by the gallon and sell it by the scoop to 1031 investors. When the commercial real estate market fell apart in 2008, I went back to practicing law and got into mergers and acquisitions. And I did that for about 10 years and sold that firm because I saw so many business owners that were leaving money on the table when they exited their business. And I was like, you know what? I want to help business owners really figure out, number one, how to make more money in their business, but then number two, how to put more money in their pocket, because it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. And so ironically enough, people were not interested in succession planning or tax mitigation as a whole until I heard about this thing called opportunity zones at a CLE. I was like, holy cow, that's like 1031 and private equity got married. That's literally my background, right? And so I said, I'm going to harness the beautiful baby that they created called opportunity zones. And, I literally have been breathing, and sleeping opportunity zones since 2018. And it was amazing because I would call people and I'd be like, hey, you want me to give you an hour of my time so I could talk to you about tax mitigation and succession planning? And they'd be like, I'm not going to mess with that. And then I set up an opportunity zone website, and we had 150 inbound leads and $75 million of capital looking for deals in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, I never thought anyone could make opportunity zones fun and make me laugh about it. This is hilarious. And by the way, we got to back up with this whole basketball thing, because I am a former AAU ball girl myself. So
really,
power forward in the house.
Nice.
And
same with me.
Power forward, excellent. Yeah, because I use what my mama gave me to box out, which is my rear end.
Exactly right.
Yes, and I always got that rebound.
Truck up.
I always got the rebound. I can't stand it when people give up the rebounds. But anyway, and one of my former students, Devontae Graham, played for the Hornets for a hot minute.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's
guard.
awesome.
Yes, I love him. So anywho, I went on the Chat GPT, it's like the Google. So now we're calling it the Chat GPT. And
Sure.
I was like, my dear friend Chat GPT, please explain to me what an opportunity zone is. So this is the full definition. So this is,
I can't wait.
I know. So you're gonna have to dumb this down for me. So it's Chat GPT. Is it a guy or a girl? I think it's a guy. We're going to say. So he spits out, opportunity zones are designated areas in the United States where real estate investments can qualify for tax incentives under the Opportunity Zone program. These areas are typically economically distressed and low-income communities, and the goal of the program is to encourage investment and economic development in these areas. Investors who invest in opportunity zones can receive tax benefits, including deferral of capital gains taxes, reduction of those taxes in the investment if the investment is held for a certain period of time, and the elimination of capital gains taxes on any profits earned on the investment. The program was created as part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 and is intended to promote long-term investment and economic growth in the underserved communities. So he did a great job, that Chat GPT. What do you think?
I tell you what, that's actually really impressive, because that's dead on.
It is.
I mean, it's actually dead on. Now, do you want the kind of the short version?
Please, just tell me, what is an opportunity zone and how is it I want to know how they're determined too. So go for it.
So, and it's funny because everybody says that it's a Trump program, right? And it just so that it came through at that point in time, but this was created Clinton era. And it was specifically designed to attract private capital to areas that had not been invested in and had not kind of caught up with the rest of the economy. And so they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take these lower income areas, and we're going to allow people to invest into those. And in so doing, they're going to get a tax benefit. And they're like, okay, how can we incentivize people to come out of the market and come into these areas? So they said, okay, what you have to have is you have to have a capital gain, and you got to take that capital gain and within 180 days, drop it into a qualified opportunity fund that then invest into these areas. And when that happens, you get to defer the tax on that capital gain, right? And so you get to defer that tax until December 31st, 2026. So that's the first benefit.
Okay.
And then if you're in there for a certain period of time prior to December of 2026, you get a reduction in the taxes when you pay them. And And then the final benefit is that if you hold for 10 years, if you hold your investment for 10 years, you get a step up in basis to fair market value, which not only eliminates capital gains, but it also eliminates depreciation recapture, which is huge.
Huge.
Right? And so as a result, what these drafters of this legislation were successfully able to do is in 3 pages of legislation, they were, number one, able to get the attention of private capital. Number two, to get it out of the market and off the sidelines and into these areas through those capricious deadlines. And then number three, they were able to make it patient, which no other program in history has gotten the level of investment that we've seen. It's over $100 billion of investment that's gone into opportunity zones. And so, and it's because of that third benefit, which is the step up in basis to fair market value. And what's significant about that is that, and to really dumb it down is that you put your money into a QOF, right? A qualified opportunity fund, which is literally just an LLC that's taxed as a partnership. And then whatever that thing owns, after your investment turns 10 years old, you get to sell it. And whatever you sell it for, that's now your tax basis. And so you can depreciate it all down during the life of it. You use that depreciation to offset the income. And then when you sell it, you don't get hit with any capital gains taxes or depreciation recapture. And so for your savvy investors, they understand that one of the big powers of real estate is that you get to take that depreciation to offset against the income along the way. And so that's what's so powerful about the opportunity zones. So the way that Congress said, all right, how do we figure out what these zones are? They said it's any low-income census tract, or it can be adjacent. If you designate one low-income census tract, you can pull one that's adjacent to it. And we're going to give the governors permission to designate up to 25% of their low-income census tracts as opportunity zones. So if you go to my website at ozpros.com/map, you can see a map of all of these zones. And you could tell, right? So the ones out west are really big because census tracts out there are typically a lot bigger because it's 25,000 people, right? And when you got, when they're dispersed, out across a big piece of country, it's going to be a bigger zone. You get out east and you got like real high rises, and those census tracts are like tiny because you got all these people crammed into one spot. And so there's 8,700 of these zones that got designated. There's actually a little bit more, and it's all over the continental United States and then also into the territories. So Puerto Rico and Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands all have opportunity zones.
Oh, wow.
And pretty much the whole island of Puerto Rico is an opportunity zone because they got dispensation to basically go 98% based upon they had just gotten demolished by Hurricane Maria. And so this was a play to get private capital into Puerto Rico, which it has unequivocally successfully done.
Well, I have a question here because I'm sure some people are listening, and this just started, it just passed in 2017. So there are people listening who probably own properties that possibly could be in a designated opportunity zone. Are they notified you're in an opportunity zone, or do they have to research it, go to your website, look at the map, and then go after it that way? So how does that work?
Yeah, so nobody gets notified.
Of course not.
It's funny is that, yeah, exactly. Like I knew exactly where the zones were back in 2018. And this is one of those coulda, shoulda, woulda things.
Yep.
I wish that I would have raised a fund just to go put stuff under contract. I would have made $1 gazillion because of COVID, right?
Yep.
Because, not only just because of COVID, but also because the properties in opportunity zones have gone significantly higher than ones not in opportunity zones. They've grown much faster. And so if you go to our map, right, at ozpros.com/map, you can type in your address. If it comes up shaded blue, that means you're in an opportunity zone. And the significant thing about that is that if you bought after like January 1st of 2018 and you bought it in an LLC, sometimes I can make that work. But if you
like to go
owned it
backwards?
correct.
Ooh.
So, but if you owned it prior to December 31st, 2017, then you can't really do anything about it because you actually have to transact after it was designated a zone.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yep.
So can they refinance it now?
It's a little bit more complicated than
Okay.
that. We've got some tricks relative to how we can do it. So if somebody owns property, one of the things that we do is we've got some folks that will buy it on a ground lease basis, and then they'll lease it back to you so that way you can do improvements to it. Because that's one of the requirements inside of this in order to make it qualify, is that it either has to be original use. The property has to be original use, which means it's new. So you built ground up construction, or you are like turning it from a residential property into a commercial property, like a rental, or that it has to be substantially improved, which means that you've effectively doubled the basis of the value of the building that's on the property. So if you got an example, if you buy a house that's $200,000 for the transaction, you're probably going to have $125,000 for the house itself, and then $75,000 for the land. You get to exclude the $75,000, but you have to put another $125,001 into it in order to make it substantially improved. Because what Congress wanted is they wanted activity in these areas. And so they didn't want people just going in and land banking. They wanted people to come in and actually make it better. And so those are the requirements relative to like what you have to do.
Okay. So we took a quick look at the map, and my property that I own 12 units in Southern Virginia, not in an opportunity zone, but there are some nearby. So if I found another 12 unit, I would have to do significant repairs to it and then bring up is it the stabilized value? What value are they actually looking for, or just the building?
Yeah, it's just the value of the building.
Okay.
And they didn't say how you have to come up with the value of the building. And so what we do is we have somebody that does cost segregation studies to be able to go in and put costs associated with all of the stuff as it currently exists. And then accordingly, if you know that you're going to do a certain amount of improvements to it, then you obviously would basically want that to be equal, the value to be equal to what those improvements are going to be. If you're trying to get that number down as much as possible, you're like, okay, we're going to say that it's as depreciated as whatever, as it currently sits, it's worth this much.
Okay.
And if you've got somebody and you got a written, an appraisal that will justify that, then that's the amount of improvements that you need to do. One of the ways that we've been able to kind of figure out how you can make the numbers pencil out on an existing asset is by adding solar to it.
Oh.
And so what's really fascinating is that in the Inflation Reduction Act, there are adders to the 30% tax credit that you can get for solar panels. One of those is if you're in an opportunity zone, you get an extra 10%. And so what a lot of my clients are doing is adding solar to their projects. And that solar and all of the costs associated with the solar goes towards your substantial improvement requirement. And then because they're getting that amount back as a tax credit, 40% back, now, number one, that 40% is tax-free. Number two is that that's kind of how it can pencil out, right? Relative to actually dumping that much money into it. But you're right. Typically, it's very tough to buy a really robust cash flowing asset that's really nice, because you're not going to be able to get the substantial improvement done. Now, that original use thing, if you were to find one that's under construction, but that just hasn't been put in service, which means it hasn't been rented, it hasn't been depreciated, and it hasn't been made available for rent, and you buy it before or right around when you get the certificate of occupancy, you can use that as original use. Oh. So I've got a realtor friend in Greenville, South Carolina. And that's what she's done. She's gone around and picked up a bunch of listings, right? She's figured out where the opportunity zones are. She's gone to the places that are under contract. And she's like, hey, you've got something that's attractive to opportunity zone investors. Let me market it for you as original use. And so I've got a bunch of my folks that have money that are looking for deals that are like, oh yeah, let me gobble that up, because instead of me having to build it and have my money on the sidelines for 12 to 18 months, I can buy that one and I can get my money working immediately.
So the cleanest way to take advantage of opportunity zones is to find a piece of land or something in that area and build something new. And then you get all these tax credits. And then the best way to even draw that out is to own it for more than 10 years. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I did go hear someone talk about opportunity zones, and you get taxed from like the amount that you paid for it. Is that like, am I correct in saying that? Like your taxes don't go up when the value of the property goes up, you're taxed on from the date of purchase or inception. Am I correct in saying that or no?
No, it's actually better than that. So let's
good.
just use an example. And I'm going to use a big number because I think it's easier to kind of contemplate and to use the numbers. But let's say that you had $1 million of capital gains, which would be a great problem to have, right? You got $1 million worth of capital gains. You put that into your fund.
Okay, hold on. Let's slow down for a second though. You have capital gains because you are selling a property. We're just for listeners out there who are trying to keep up here. You sell a large property and you're getting taxed these capital gains. And to avoid paying that capital gains tax, that's what you're talking about. You're using that money to, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. So keep going.
And it could be you're selling a property. It could be that you're selling a business. It could be that you're selling stock, appreciated stock, appreciated baseball cards, crypto, or anything that has a capital gain. You take that capital gain, and it's not like 1031 where you have to trace and you have to put it with a intermediary or anything like that. You can literally, you put it in your own fund, your own fund's bank account. And then once you do that, you then have a period of time to invest that into property in a zone, right? And so you would normally pay $238,000 in taxes on that $1 million, right? And you'd pay it next year. So if you were to sell right now, you would be paying $238,000 in April of 2024. Instead, you get to defer that tax until December of 2026. So it makes it payable in April of 2027 now. So it's basically an interest-free loan from the government until that period of time. So that's valuable in and of itself.
Okay, perfect.
There's legislation that's pending to bring back that other benefit relative to the reduction. If that goes through, you'll end up reducing the taxes that you pay and also extend it out to like 2029 or 2031 on your deferral. Okay. So that's a big benefit in and of itself, that if that legislation goes through, you're going to get a longer tax-free loan from the government, right? Okay. Interest-free loan from the government. So that's the first benefit. So then you go out and you can either buy a piece of land and build something on it, or you could buy a completely improved, right? You could buy a fourplex that's just been built, and to immediately put people in there, start renting it out, start depreciating that asset to offset the income. And then you hold that, let's say that you sold something and you had the gain tomorrow. You get it in by the end of this, you put it in by May 7th, right? So May 7th of 2020 or 2033, you sell that asset, and notwithstanding that you've depreciated it down to zero over the 10 years, which would normally make it so that you would pay income on that when you sold it and capital gains on it. Instead, let's say that you sold it for $2 million at that point in time. You would get a step up in basis to $2 million. And so you would pay zero capital gains taxes on it and zero depreciation recapture. This is, and I think that what you were thinking about is that for estate tax purposes, if you were to die and your estate was to hold that property, instead of it being valued at fair market value when you die, it would be at the amount that you put into it.
Okay.
And so it would go against your estate at $1 million, not at the $2 million of what it's worth. So that's another benefit that not a whole lot of people know about or talking about.
This is mind blowing. I'm sitting here, y'all can't see my video, but I'm like, my brain is exploding. I love geeking out over this kind of stuff. There's so many great opportunities for people to get into real estate and do amazing things for people. And so, Ashley, this is a perfect storm for people like that. So they can go to your website, pull up the map, find an area, then go there. You're going to be creating jobs for people for building the place. You're going to be providing safe housing for people. And it's also going to help your pocket as far as taxes. So it's a win-win all the way around. Is there anything else that I'm missing in that? Because I mean, this is opportunity zone is like such a perfect name for this.
Absolutely. So opportunity zones are they're not only the tax incentive associated with your deferrals, but you can stack incentives on top of that, new market tax credits and other types of governmental programs that are out there. And most of them have a special dispensation and a special allocation if you're doing it in an opportunity zone. Case in point, the Inflation Reduction Act with the solar credits, extra 10%. There's also competitive grants that are available that if you're in an opportunity zone, you qualify for them. I know the USDA has special loan programs specifically carved out for opportunity zones. And so it's really cool how they have become kind of a fulcrum point for lots of kind of disparate governmental organizations to center around and to utilize them as a unifying rallying point. So as part of that, we actually created a community of folks that are interested in opportunity zones who are also interested in impact and in making a difference. And it's called Ozworks Group, and it's ozworksgroup.com. And think of it as a virtual co-working center for all things opportunity zone. And inside of that, we've got specific, get-togethers where people talk about the impact play that they're having and the different things that are happening inside of opportunity zones. One of the really cool things about OZs that is different than like 1031 and most place-based economic incentive programs is that you don't have to just invest in real estate. You can actually invest into operating companies as well. And so for that person that's doing that, the vet-based tiny home community, if there was a service dog business that wanted to come and to locate there to kind of collaborate with those folks, that service dog business could be a qualified opportunity zone business and get investment from, folks that are investing tax deferred dollars.
This is amazing. And that kind of tacks on to my last question here is because I keep talking about a 12 unit. That is the one that I own is in a lower socioeconomic area, but it's not in an opportunity zone. But these can be single family homes, multifamily, anything else that is,
it could be anything, literally. Okay. It could be, single family, industrial, any kind of real estate works.
Wonderful.
And most operating businesses work as well.
This is so amazing. So how do the listeners, if they have more questions, how do they find you to ask questions about this?
So our website is ozpros.com. And we've got a special landing page with some deals for your listeners at ozpros.com/podcast. And we'd love to either set a strategy call. We've also got a weekly program where we do rapid fire question and answer. It's called OZ Ascent. And that's probably the fastest way to the top of, the Opportunity Zone Summit, right? To get to the mountain top the fastest, because we've got, 75 other members inside of there.
Oh, wow.
And it's a weekly mastermind where people bring their questions and talk about their deals and get input from me and from other professionals that are in that. And that's been a really cool, community that we've put together. And then we have a package where we set up Opportunity Zone funds and the Opportunity Zone businesses, and we do that for a flat fee.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
But just looking at the map on your website is free.
Absolutely.
All right. So listeners, you've got to go to ozpro.com/map and just check it out. See what areas are around you and start looking to invest in those areas. This has been such amazing information, Ashley. I appreciate your time for this. I want to move to the second part of the podcast because, again, I could talk for hours on this, but I like to find out what makes Ashley Tison a badass, and I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. What is a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
I'd have to say Traction by Gino Wickman.
Yes.
We run all of our companies and all of the investments that we make in the fund that we started off of EOS. And it's made a huge difference. So I'm a big fan of that book and that process.
Yeah, when I read Traction, I read it like a textbook. I literally was like, okay, now we got to do our rocks. We got to do this. Such a great book. All right, the first A in badass is for advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Is to, really figure out like what your purpose in life is. Dial that in and, envision the life that you want to live and then set about putting that into motion and live it now, as opposed to, if only this will happen, if only that'll happen. Like literally figure out where you want to live, what you want your day to look like, and then start working towards making that reality.
So good. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives Ashley to be successful?
Well, it's that same thing, right? Is that purpose. And my purpose is to put $1 billion to work for impact purposes, for specifically kingdom impact in my case. And we are executing on that mission and vision every day.
Wow. I think we need to be friends here, Ashley. I'm going to have to, I need a IKEA trip here soon. So I may just come knock over on your office door.
That's funny that you got to come all the way down to Charlotte in order to go to IKEA. That's funny.
Know. I wish Raleigh, come on, you need an IKEA already.
It's unbelievable. They don't have one.
All right. So the next A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on besides that bottle you just opened?
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's that $1 billion, right? One of the ways that we're getting there is, I set a financial finish line for myself, and it's unbelievable how close we are to that financial finish line. And everything, after we get to that financial finish line, after it's paid, everything else goes in towards that impact goal. And my desire, and everybody on my team, right, we're working towards getting them to their financial finish line, so that way we are taking care of them and their families, and we're executing on putting $1 billion to work for really cool stuff. And so, it's knocking down the blocking and tackling that you got to do in order to get there.
And I love that term, financial finish line. I just wrote it down. And I think everybody needs a financial finish line. But we all know that once you get to that finish line, you're always going to, let me push it out a little bit further. But
that's the issue. If you don't set it, and if you don't commit to it, right, it's going to be the old adage, right? It's like, how much is enough? Well, just a little bit more. And so, and I was guilty of that. Right. And I was like, okay, I want to, it's like you get your first new car. You're like, ooh, I want the next new car. I want to go and so that's been something that's been really cool for my wife and I. And it's been unbelievably liberating relative to just pressure, because I'm like, hey, I know that, that this is what we're going for. And so I can be really, focused and very determined as it relates to what I put my time into.
I love it. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Yeah. So, like I said, EOS is a huge one that's part of that. It's interesting because, one of the things in addition to opportunity zones is we've, helped people, guide people through that, is I've realized how much of a Sherpa I like to be. And I really enjoy helping people to, number one, kind of go down the financial finish line route. But then number two is to do the hard work of how you create generational wealth and not mess up the next generation. And so we're working on a meritocracy-based estate planning system that we're assisting some of our, higher net worth folks and maybe not so high net worth folks to implement as part of their estate planning process. And that's been really cool.
Well, I'm going to call it the trifecta for you, because you are impacting real estate investors who are impacting communities and providing. That's right. I think that is fantastic. I mean, you are just so cool, Ashley. So thank you for that. And the final S in badass, we're going to wrap this up, is success. What does success mean to you?
That's just it, right? Is success means that I'm walking in my giftings, and that I'm doing the things that I'm called to do and nothing else. Well,
it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. You have really educated me. I'm sure the listeners got so much out of this. And listeners, once again, that he's giving us a discount here for this call. So it is ozpro.com/podcast. Is that correct, Ashley?
Yeah, it's actually OZPros, like plural, ozpros.com/podcast.
Perfect. Well, Ashley, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me on, Jen. It's been a pleasure.
And that is all. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.